This morning, Nigel Farage went out on British television to multiple news outlets to discuss Brexit and that 5 million quid. Frankly, it's one of the worst political car crashes he could have imagined. I'm Political X. Have a listen to this.
Expectations of Leave voters, and they've not been delivered. And that's a political failure in this country. You talk about the economy. Actually, we've done better on many measures than France, Germany, and Italy. So it's not economically hurt us, but we haven't taken advantage of it.
Although our investment export numbers have been really poor, the things which come from trading with a big
neighbour. But Europe's a tiny market. There's a global market out there. The world's changing very quickly.
It's easily our biggest.
Unbelievable. I want you to listen to that and take it on board, but I'm then going to play what Nick Ferrari had to say about Brexit to Nigel as well.
Well, constitutionally, 100%. We've left and we're not going back. It would be a political impossibility for any party to win a general election saying they're going to take us back in. So constitutionally, it's a big win. In terms of, have there been successes? Yes, of course. You know, our growth figures are higher than France and Germany and Italy. And we could roll out a vaccine quickly without being held back by Brussels, whether you like the vaccine or not. We've taken a lead on foreign policy, areas like Ukraine we couldn't have done.
We've taken a 6% hit on GDP, though, Mr. Farage.
But if you believe that, we would have done almost as well as America. It is for the birds. That stuff is for the birds. These are the same people, by the way, who told us that if we voted Brexit, we'd all end up living in caves, frankly. So I don't buy any of that.
And that's coming from the guy who told us that if we all voted for Brexit, we would have cheaper food, clothing, and his weird obsession with bras. Of course, none of that's happened. Prices have gone through the roof. But the thing that I find really interesting that I didn't see anyone pull up on Nigel this week was Northern Ireland tops UK's economic growth charts since the Brexit vote. It is steaming ahead and it only has half a foot in the European Union. Nigel is never pressed on this. He's never asked to explain it. And I very rarely see journalists bring this up. But he's poo-pooing the OBR, the IMF, Bloomberg, Oxford University, the Financial Times, Cambridge, and a whole host of others, and relying on probably one economist, Patrick.
We have actually done a simulation of leaving the EU, and the first thing that comes out is an 8% drop in the cost of living on day one.
Nothing has gotten cheaper since Brexit. Everything has gone up in price. It has been an unmitigated disaster. And yet, I very rarely see people pulling him up on these basic facts that he would not be able to explain. He tells you to not listen to facts and instead listen to him. This guy is the guy that, once Brexit was done, walked away. This guy is not prime ministerial material. He shuns things. He has no hubris. He acts like a combination of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. He ignores scandals left, right, and centre, and he denies all responsibility. This is not leadership. This is catastrophe waiting to happen if this man gets into power. Now, the other thing I'd say is, if it's so good, Nigel, where are your big Independence Day celebrations? Where are they? I've never seen any. In fact, they tried to set up a museum of Brexit celebrations across the UK under Theresa May. It completely collapsed, and nothing's been done since. Nobody likes it. The majority of the country hates it. But Nigel will tell you that you're wrong and he's right. But of course, it didn't end there, because the news did something very interesting. They really hammered Nigel on his 5 million. And we've got multiple people doing it, including people that would be considered Nigel Farage allies. This is Nate Robinson from the BBC. He's not an ally of Nigel Farage. He tends to hold him to account really well. Have a listen.
Would you be happy if the next Prime Minister of this country secretly banked a £5 million cheque from a billionaire whose business interests he was promoting?
Well, I would refute that entirely. I'm not promoting his business interests. I've been promoting...
I asked you in general as a principle. I hadn't come to you, but would you be happy if any candidate to be Prime Minister banked a secret cheque for £5 million?
I'm sorry, why is it secret?
Well, you didn't reveal it. It was revealed by the newspaper you'd taken £5 million.
In fact, Nigel claimed that it had been leaked by Russians who hacked his computer, but he then didn't bother to tell the secret security services of the UK or the police that he'd been hacked whilst being a member of Parliament. This thing continues to unravel. I'm a bit surprised Nick didn't bring this up.
Why should I?
Because we believe that people should govern in the national interest, not in the financial interests of themselves or their supporters.
I wasn't in politics.
You're telling me you weren't discussing becoming an MP?
I wasn't in
I
politics.
interviewed you about it, Mr. Farage.
Yeah.
We did a 40-minute interview about whether you might become a member of Parliament.
And as you well know, it was a very, very difficult decision. I'd far from made my mind up.
Far from made his mind up. Then he gets 5 million. Within a few months, he goes into power as an MP. But there's something else that Nick hasn't brought up. Nigel was the major shareholder in Reform. So not only did Nigel get 5 million from a donor to the Reform Party, Reform also received 9 million from the donor. And as majority shareholder, there's a chance Nigel could have profited from that. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Anyway, this is a bit of a joke because as the major shareholder, he is in politics in one of the biggest parties in the UK. And he's telling everyone that he wasn't involved in politics. The fact that the guy also gave a donation of 9 million to the Reform Party means he's got an interest in that party succeeding. None of this is in isolation. This is a car crash interview that you're witnessing. And it's thanks to very good journalism that we're starting to see this.
Look,
And you took £5 million from a billionaire who wants government and the Bank of England to change its policy.
No, I want government and the Bank of England to change their policy. I have done for years. I've been saying this consistently since 2019. There is a whole new world out there of AI, tech, crypto, you name it.
I've never been sold by crypto. I've always felt that it's some sort of pyramid Ponzi scheme. You chuck a load of money in and it doesn't really produce anything or give anything back. I look forward to your comments and pushing back on me on that. I don't get it. I've dealt in the past with stocks and shares. I don't see it with cryptocurrency. I'm also a historian, so I'm quite aware of the effect that stocks and shares can have, as well as a number of schemes that have been pushed in the past. I don't see it. Now, interestingly, Nick does a good job here, but he's not the only one. A major Farage ally steps into the breach and starts hammering Nigel on the 5 million.
I think you'll find he voted in Hampshire, so I think you'll find that's where home, actually. But whatever. Yeah, they may well do. And people inherit vast sums of money, and all sorts of things happen in life.
He's not your dad. You didn't inherit it.
People inherit money.
He's a crypto billionaire living on the other side of the planet, and he gave you... But again, you talked about, you said this is an unconditional gift.
Yeah.
Is it a gift, a reward, or is it for your security? Because
No, it's an unconditional gift. I can spend it on Ferraris if I wish to. All right?
are you spending it on Ferraris, or are you spending it on your security?
None of your business.
The thing is, when politicians get freebies, even if it's before they're politician, the rules are very clear that if it's before up to a year before you become elected as an MP, and I do accept that at the time that you were given this gift, you were not an MP and you were not planning to return at that time.
But he was a major shareholder in the Reform Party. Why is Julia not bringing that up?
I'd had conversations with people in Reform around that time. Nevertheless, the rules state that you should declare that money.
No.
Because, but did you think that Keir Starmer should have declared his free suits from Lord Ali?
Well, they were political.
How is a suit political and £5 million, more money than most people would ever think of or ever earn in or enjoy in their lives? How can that not be political?
By the way, this is a hugely successful British business.
Good for him.
All right, which is a good thing.
Yes, good for him.
Yeah. Julia, it's a private thing. It wasn't a political donation. If you read the rules carefully, I've done absolutely nothing wrong.
Then why is there a Standards and Privileges Committee investigation into you?
Well,
and why has this done so much damage?
Because it has to you, and it has to the London media class, but it didn't.
No,
really...
I don't think that's fair. When I first heard, I don't think I am typical of that class, and I understand your security needs. I think you know now that it was a mistake not to declare that money.
No, I don't. And I spoke to hundreds of people in Makerfield, walking up and down streets over 4 days of campaigning, and only one person raised it as an issue. Only one person raised it.
Although we've heard recently from Reform Comms that it was an issue that kept turning up on the doorstep when they were door knocking. It's a joke. He's a joke. And this is the major concern about having someone like this as Prime Minister in the UK. He doesn't take accountability like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. He doesn't have any hubris. He doesn't have the ability to apologise. In fact, he denies and denies and denies. In fact, it's even worse than that, because we know that he's given multiple reasons as to why he got that money. A reward for Brexit. He's also stated that it's as a result of security. But later on, and on Good Morning Britain's interview, he says he hasn't spent the money. So it's for security, and he's had it for over 2 years. He's had it for over 2 years, and he's not spent the money. He's literally sticking his fingers up at all of us and laughing all the way to the bank. This is mind-blowingly bad from Nigel, and it's good to see that the press are holding him to account. But it's also interesting to see how Julia Hart-Brewer dealt with a lot of his comments, which are obviously designed to change the topic and subject. She couldn't give a stuff. It's quite refreshing to see. I'm not a fan of hers, by the way, but coming across this, it was pretty hard-lined of Julia and how she deals with Nigel, someone that she probably likes.
I mean, wouldn't it be easier? Declare it. Show the receipts for what you've spent it on for security. Round-the-clock security costs an absolute fortune. Hundreds of thousands of pounds. Job done.
This is an unconditional gift, all right? And I was reported, as the local elections came up, with the chairman of the Conservative Party, they were terrified of what we might do. And of course we didn't.
Blame someone else, classic Donald Trump, classic Boris Johnson, always someone else's fault, always someone out to get Nigel. Nigel's always the victim. One of the richest men in Britain now, one of the most influential, and he's playing the victim card. Boris Johnson, Donald Trump style. It's pathetic. He never explains what the guy said as to why he gave him that money. It seems to flip-flop or be very vague. But it wasn't just on here. He was also hammered on the BBC, and he was hammered on Nick Farage's show.
I've got to ask you a question about this £5 million gift from this crypto billionaire. You know better than most politicians how LBC works. I'm getting comments as you and I are speaking. This man needs to tell us, what has he done with the £5 million? Get him to be truthful. Nigel Farage, please, what has happened to this £5 million gift?
With all due respect, what's it got to do with you?
He's running for Prime Minister, and he doesn't think it's of interest to the public as to why he's been given $5 million. This is the guy that can get bought off on Cameo for a couple of quid, 30 quid, and he'll say stuff like, I support the IRA. And then we're told, we're not meant to believe that for $5 million he's been bought off in any way, shape or form, and we're there to just trust him. This is the guy who didn't realise there was a fucking spy in his own party drivelling out crap about Putin, which weirdly, him and the UKIP leader at the time, David, I think, Hoburn, was basically saying the same thing as Nathan Gill, who's now arrested in jail. Honestly, people, wake up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about all of these clips in Nigel Farage. I appreciate there's also stuff that came out today about Rob Kenyon. I've not been able to cover this because this is a short video, but also I am roasting in my flat. I have no aircon. I would like to push back against this type of media and to build an organisation that can do it. I need your help. Hit that like and share button for free, or if you'd like to become a member or supporter of the channel, you can click the link in the description. I am considering setting up a Q&A on a weekly basis just with myself and members. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you'd like me to do that. On top of that, if you'd like to help out the channel and learn more about history, I've created a book called Manufactured Fear, available on Amazon, link also in the description. Once again, I'd like to say thank you to my YouTube and Patreon members. You keep this channel going and growing. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.